Good evening. This is another exciting episode on the All In platform, the All In Politics, the real, the jump off, with another exciting show. I'm your host, Walter Damager, along with my co-host.
At Rob Cooper Jr. What's going on, family?
How you doing, good brother? We have a
Um,
lot of stuff. The hands of the night.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got a special guest, but before we get into our special guest, I'm gonna allow you to introduce him. But just we continue to see an election that seemingly will never end because we have a president who refuses to accept defeat. Just as of I think 5 o'clock today, which is Friday, November the 20th. Georgia just announced that they have certified Joe Biden as the winner of the 16 electoral votes out of Georgia officially. He was it was called for him earlier in the week, and they reconfirmed it after a recount. The other piece too, I think, as we live in limbo, we're still dealing with a coronavirus. And as of today, we're roughly at 12 million cases in the United States, and I'm almost scared to read this number, but we're pushing up on 255,000 American lives being lost. So COVID is still out there. We're broadcasting tonight out of the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the cases are extremely on the rise as it is across the country. Excuse me, and we're also hearing that schools are now closing as well as some other businesses. So just can't stress to folks, enough right now, particularly with the holidays coming up. Really stay at home. Social distancing.
If you have to
Uh,
get out, exactly.
exactly. Follow the CDC guidelines. With pretty much, I don't need to go through them all, but they've been drilled in us, and you really should have been following them. From the time when we went into that state of emergency in uh, March of earlier this year. And for God's sake, when you go outside or when you come in contact with people, wear a mask. I mean, don't believe the hype. Um, don't fall for the okey doke. Put a mask on. Believe science, and let's keep this thing moving, man. And as a team, get rid of this virus, man. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to, open up the show just like that. But I want you to officially open up the show and bring on our guests because we got some, exciting information and some topics to jump into.
Yes, I definitely want to do that. First, I want to give us a moment to recognize a pillar of the community and a real trailblazer in the activist portion of the city of Philadelphia. A brother that was lost on September 3rd, 2000. A brother that we all came to know and love. He was my godfather, Mr. Malik Aziz, who was the co-founder and chair of Amends for a Better Philadelphia, which was founded in 2002. He was the chairman and co-founder of the National Exodus Council, which was founded in 2007. He was the assistant director of the mayor's office of reentry from 2000 to 2009 under Mayor Street and Mayor Nutter. He retired from the city of Philadelphia in 2013 after paying a great deal of servitude for 15 years of service. He was also a part of Returning Citizens for a Better Philadelphia, which he was the president, involved in many communication based organizations for the youth and many alike in the community, which now gives me the segue to introduce to you a very astute individual and trailblazer within the same ranks, Mr. J. Johnny Harrell, who was a Philadelphia community activist, political organizer, writer, and public speaker. He is the founder and executive director of the TCRC, Community Healing Center, which seeks to address the needs of the Black community and upliftment. Mr. Harrell was a formerly incarcerated activist with 25 years in the federal system struggling against mass incarceration. Mr. Harrell, we welcome you and enjoy your presence.
Thank you so much. I would like
Yes,
to
yes.
say that um, when I came home in September 2009 and I went to the DMV, one of the first questions they asked me was, would I like to register to vote? And I'd like to acknowledge the fact that Malik Aziz led the fight for returning citizens to get the vote in 2002. So for
Yes.
all of us who came home and were able to register to vote and became politically involved and connected, he was one of the trailblazers who made that possible.
That is so, brother. First of all, brother Harrell, welcome to All In Politics, and just starting with that. One of our visions of starting, this All In Politics podcast. Brother Malik was one of our first guests that we had on, and we used to call it the Power Hour, and that was, some of the main key points that he was bringing to the community, just getting that information out there, because as you know, this goes nationwide and worldwide, depending on where folks, log on. And I know all the states have different rules when it comes to election laws, but, just kind of really pushing, this information, throughout the United States, and letting folks understand, the power in their vote, as we saw, this year, close to about 160 million people, came out to vote in the presidential election. I know in Philadelphia it was the highest turnout since 1984. So I think, as Kamala Harris, mentioned, when we vote, things change. One of the things that we're doing here, and we really couldn't speak on it last time, but one of the things that All In Politics is in, as well as the All In Network, where we're now in the process is doing, is forming or formulating a political action committee. And actually, point number one in our plan is registering people to vote, and particularly, targeting the youth in our community, to make sure that, they not only register to vote, but, put out voter education, because that is, so important.
Yes,
So, yeah, as you can attest to that, having that ability to be educated, not only just to register, particularly when you are a returning citizen, really mattered.
most definitely.
But one of the things I think, coming into, speaking of the voting piece, and we continue to now start to see, particularly when the pandemic started, we started seeing states start releasing folks back into the community. With your, the service that you do right now for folks returning, for our returning citizens. Can you just kind of give us, kind of an understanding, of how you kind of manage, finding, resources and services for our returning citizens, amid COVID-19 and the coronavirus?
Well, even in the best of times, it is difficult to transition. I speak from personal experience and from the past 11 years in assisting formerly incarcerated people to begin and sustain their journey to freedom. Employment is always difficult. When we come home, we are faced with large gaps in our employment record. We have many times been out of the job market for some time. It's difficult to create a resume that really reflects who we are. And so often, the simple fact that we're trying to do so many things at one time. We're trying to reintegrate in society, um, reattach ourselves to our family, um, create new relationships, find employment, find housing, and do all the things that ordinary citizens take for granted.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a continual learning process. Then, when you add on to that COVID 19, which has fundamentally changed how we live and work. If you think back to this time last year, and you would say that um, for a long stretch of time, everything is closed, restaurants,
Right.
the stores, sports. Everything has come to a screeching halt, and folks who are coming home from prison are trying to adjust to a far different reality than they could have imagined, and it's very, very difficult. Just the job market itself, you are competing with folks who have been in the job market for some time, who many times have a higher level of education, a stronger work ethic in the eyes of employers, and you're battling the discrimination that's inherent against the formerly incarcerated population.
Mhm.
Michelle Alexander aptly described it when she said that we are second class citizens. That's how a
Mhm.
lot of folks look at formerly incarcerated people. And a lot of employers are very hesitant to give us a second chance or a fresh
Mhm.
start. But
Mhm.
that's exactly what we need. So you come out of prison and you're fighting for employment, fighting to find suitable housing. You're trying to attain a living wage. You are involved in reestablishing strong family and social relationships. This can be overwhelming. Add COVID to that, and it's extremely difficult.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of sounds like almost, looking at, through the Constitution and in general laws, you talk about, you can't have what they call double jeopardy. But just, listening to your description of how it is trying to return into to society, it sounds like, our returning citizens, not only are you paying your debts to society behind bars, but you're also expected to pay debts outside, outside of the bars. Is that a correct assessment of how folks feel when they step out and really try to reconnect into society?
Yes, it is. And for many folks who are on probation or parole, that's especially onerous. In
Hmm.
Pennsylvania, you actually have to pay for your parole visits. You know, so that's one thing. When I came home and when I was in a halfway house, I got a write up every 15 days that didn't have a job, and I was in danger of being sent back to prison. When I got a job, it was like I was going to be sent back January 1st, and the Goodwill Industries gave me a job 2 days before Christmas. I mean, that's the kind of pressure you're under. Um, it's an intense pressure, and many folks who have spent so long incarcerated and come out with hopes and dreams and plans, really find themselves in a situation that can be mentally and spiritually overwhelming. And
Yeah.
society
Mm.
doesn't really understand just what a transition entails. You know, so I think it's extremely important to tell the stories of successes of so many people who overcome all the odds and they do well, find work. There are varying levels of success. For some people, it's merely maintaining their freedom, not going back, um, staying clean, not giving dirty urines, um, not being involved in any misdemeanor offenses that can take them back, finding employment, reconnecting, and just um, attaining higher education and doing all the things to get them back into the flow of being a normal person. Just feeling as if you're a normal citizen is a distinct level of success.
Yeah. Well, I like to, commend you for your services and your activism during these very critical times, because at times activism isn't for the faint of heart. It is
Hmm.
for those that really partake into wanting to be and build their communities, and to become a part such as yourself and, like I said, the late Aziz. With your organization, and some of the ideas that you have living through these experiences, and on top of the COVID crisis, what are some of the innovative ways you can see yourself bridging that gap and making it a better way for the newer releasees, and the people that are out to get to the services and things that they need?
So it's extremely important for folks who are coming home in this pandemic to become computer literate.
Mhm.
And when you are incarcerated, you really don't have that opportunity because the internet is a distant dream. So it's essential for family members, for our children, grandchildren. My grandchildren were tremendous in helping me to learn and achieve. And it's simple things. I've been going 18 years. You know, I never had a cell phone. You know, and
Right.
just to master the cell phone, and then to move into computer literacy. I took computer courses and I became very proficient. And then I felt as if I was a part of the flow because the internet is a world that we have to conquer. There are very few places that do um, physical applications. You have to go online to apply,
That's right. That's
and
right.
you have to follow up with a good cover letter, a strong resume, and you have to present your personality virtually.
That's right.
So what we've done during the pandemic is a lot of virtual work, and this pandemic has really shown us that brick and mortar establishments may be the past. So many folks are working remotely and maintaining quality work ethics that in the future the downtown multi-billion-dollar office buildings may become obsolete. But as formerly incarcerated people, we have to be a part of that movement. We can't
That's
be
right.
left behind. The in the digital divide, we can't be on the wrong side.
So let's talk about that, and I absolutely agree with you. With the great digital divide that we are experiencing in America, and really it came to fruition, once the pandemic hit. I know it was something that we were always working on, but we were kind of forced to kind of get there. We have seen an improvement over, I guess, the last 8 months. Where you're seeing folks from all kind of walks of life, both young and old now starting to make that transition. It's interesting because in our pre-show she brought that up. Walt and I was just kind of talking about that. We are saying now how you go to your doctor visits now. Those are all done, could be done virtually, as something in the industry they call telemedicine, and
Yeah,
you meet face to face with your doctor, and they give you the same type of information that that they can give you when you're sitting in that in the doctor's office, minus picking up any other contagious type diseases. And then you say, hey doc, what's wrong? Hey, I got a little cold here. I had a little flu symptoms and things like that, or not feeling too good. And before he hangs up, the doc says, okay, I'm gonna shoot you
prescription.
a prescription to the drugstore, and then 4 or 5 minutes, 45 minutes later, you're receiving it at the door via maybe Uber or something else, delivered to you. Matter of fact, one of the major drugstore chains, brought me 12 pack of sodas to my home. So we're definitely in that world, and all that with the stroke of a thumb. But so it's one of the things that I think we have to get by with the digital divide, as Walt, you mentioned there's some frustrations even in inner city Philadelphia. You got folks who still have challenges. It's not that they don't have the devices, but having issues with and being in areas where they can't get the reception, they can't get Wi-Fi. So that continues to to be a challenge for not just for returning citizens, but also for folks who reside and live in our disadvantaged areas.
And
Well,
socioeconomic disadvantages.
yeah.
You know.
So that is definitely something that we really need to get onto, and I know what we want to do is just really get onto some political discussions to see how we could leverage our vote to start making things happen. Before we get to that, I just want to let folks know that this podcast is brought to you by the All In Network. Don't forget to head over to allinnetwork.net to find all our podcasts, including the All In podcast with um, our producer here in the studio with us, Elijah and Mike. We also have Rain and Bliss. These young ladies do an outstanding job of keeping you up to date on the pop culture. We have Real Deal Radio. Of course, you're listening right now to All In Politics. And of course, the Beast Gaming podcast, where all you gamers can kind of head on over to get some tips on how to, defeat or become, you get your skills or get your sticks ready for Madden 2020. I haven't played it in so long, so I don't know. I'm still back in the Sega days, like you, brother Harrell. I haven't picked up the sticks in a while. But Walt, we also are over at the on YouTube channel, All In Network YouTube channel. You just go to YouTube and search All In Network, and you can find all of our programmings and platforms. But Walt, when they get over there, man, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, if they're, handcrafted and they can hold on to any type of device or anything that can even remotely get them where they need to be on this loveliest thing we call a plane. I want you to grab the device, jump up and down, do a 360-degree turn, slam and smash that subscribe button. Yes, I said it. Smash it.
That's right. Smash that subscribe button. So when you see us come out on YouTube, you will make sure you'll get all the notifications and all of our programming from all of our exciting shows. So again, as Brother Walt just said, smash that like button and smash that subscribe button. But getting back to I guess as I mentioned in the opener, uh, it's finally coming to a close. But election 2020, this last 4 years have been some turbulent times with Donald Trump, aka 45. But as I mentioned earlier, 160 million, close to 160 million folks came out and exercised their right to vote. And let me just say this, regardless of who you voted for, whether you voted for Trump or you voted for Biden, the fact that 160 million folks came out and wanted their voices heard is really how democracy works. And I believe we were at about 65 or 66% turnout. I haven't got the proper numbers, but in my opinion, that's still too low. I won't be satisfied until we get, close to 80% turnout of folks coming out to vote. And that's one of the things with the All-In Political Action Committee. Those will, again, as I mentioned to you earlier, Brother Harrell, those will be one of our initiatives to get as many people, registered as possible. But the other piece too, is to get progressive judges and DAs and folks on the school board to see how we can stop that school to prison pipeline that we've seen possibly over the last 20 to 30 years. Any suggestions from you, just from, working in the community, how we can reach, and find the right people that we can back and support, not just by our vote, but perhaps fundraising and things like that to get the right folks in there who really understand, the, just the destruction that this school to prison is doing in our community on the whole.
So we had amazing success here in the city of Philadelphia. We elected one of the most progressive DAs in the country, Larry Krasner. And how
Yes.
we did that was a coalition of community groups, superb organizing and door knocking. I worked with the Block Party, um, back 3.5 years ago, and that was a organization that we created to stimulate the vote among formerly incarcerated people and their families and communities. In the city of Philadelphia, we have over 300,000 formerly incarcerated residents here living in the city. And Pennsylvania is one of 18 states where, as soon as you come home, you can register to vote. So we did a lot of door knocking. We did a lot of um, uh, texting and networking to get formerly incarcerated people and their families and the community to see the importance of voting. So many folks in our community are already registered to vote because, as I said, when you go to the DMV, when you renew your license, it's very simple. It's just one button and you're registered to vote. The importance is finding a candidate that will inspire people and who they can believe in, and then whom they will hold accountable. Larry Krasner was the perfect candidate because he was a civil rights lawyer who was intentionally involved in criminal justice. And for the past 30 years, he had fought on the side of the people. He was very well known on all levels. And we put together a coalition that smashed the opposition and vaulted them into power. And when he became the DA, one of the first things that he did was what he had promised. He wholesale fired much of the top administration who were mired in the thinking of Frank Rizzo and the old time Philadelphia political style, a racist white supremacist style. And he brought in a lot of young, energetic, visionary lawyers and transformed the DA's office. Now he's met with a lot of opposition because FOP and the Democratic power structure hated to see that change because it literally made them obsolete. Now he's up for re-election this coming year, and we have to make sure that all the gains that we made over the past 3.5 years don't get washed away. We have to fight hard for a second term for Larry, and I can assure you we'll be out there organizing, enlightening, and helping folks to see what the reality is of what he's tried to do and what will happen if we allow the forces that are arrayed against him to prevail.
Well, any way that we can help here at All In Network, I know I was speaking with a team of our advisors, who are developing the pack. I shot them. Not all of them live in the Philadelphia. Matter of fact, none of them live in the Philadelphia area, but we're trying to expand our reach throughout, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as well, into other, states like Ohio and some of the other places. But yeah, but Larry Krasner is definitely, a public servant that we would like to get behind. So any connections that you have, we would love to have him on the podcast to talk about some of the wonderful work that he has done in Philadelphia, and what folks can do to continue to help him, not just for his reelection campaign, but to help him to continue to serve the people of Philadelphia, because that is his first and foremost job. And I think when we're talking about politics, and of course, I love the semantics of it. I love, the campaigning and watching the results on election night. But folks have to understand that, and I hope we're bringing this across to, our listening and viewing audience, that, and I often say this, that politics is not a spectator sport. It's not like we're watching the Eagles, or, you're a Cowboys fan or something like that. We sit there and we eat our popcorn and root for the winning team. It's not that. Here's a news flash for you. You are on the field. You are part of the winning, the winning team, and we have to really become more engaged. One of the things that I'm recommending, and I like to see come from this podcast and just from our organization, is really put out some information about us putting together a 10-year voting plan.
Mm.
Where we're not, coming around every 4 years. That's where we really fall for the okie doke. If we
Yes.
wait every 4 years, even every 2 years, it's too much. We need to be involved in this process every year because, next year, as you mentioned, it's an extremely important election with, the DA's race in Philadelphia. And see, while everyone is asleep, waiting on 2024, waiting for Kamala to run, you know what I mean? Here, before Kamala, you can get, reelected, or we can run for whoever, if it's Joe running, for a reelection bid, we will wake up and we find out that, we ended up going to sleep and allowing a white supremacist to, run the Philadelphia DA's office, or more lose, quite a few seats on the school boards where we're at. So, outside of Philadelphia, many folks don't know, in Philadelphia, obviously, school board is an appointed position, but outside of Philadelphia, in the 66 other counties, in other schools where school districts are at, there, these are generally, elected positions. So, these are things that I think we need to bring, awareness to the community. And if not, just stay focused on trying to prevent that school to prison pipeline, because just folks know those corporate prisoners, those corporate prisons, they're not taking any days off.
No.
They're not stopping any. They get paid huge amounts of money and reap huge amounts of profits, and they don't do that by going to work and then going to sleep for 4 years. I can guarantee you. I can guarantee you that. But moving on to the national elections, Joe Biden is the president-elect. Excuse me, let me call him for right. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, as we mentioned. Before Ice Cube came out with a plan, before 50 Cent came out running his mouth, before Lil Wayne came out with something. Um, Joe Biden
Get
had a
get weed.
plan for
Weed.
Black America,
Yeah.
and I would like for us to kind of just, as Elijah will put that up on the screen, to really start to examine now what is on paper, that Joe Biden. I think the party is over. I mean, of course, there's another one on inauguration day, but here's where now we want to make sure that President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris stay true to what they put on paper. Your thoughts, Brother Harrell?
Well, I think it's extremely important for all of Black America to look at the Biden-Harris plan. Many folks aren't even aware of it, and it is extremely rare that a national figure comes into office with a plan for Black America.
Mhm.
I mean, the reality was, even Obama didn't have a laid
That's
out
right.
plan for Black America.
That's right.
He tried to be the president for all the people, and you know, we see how well that worked out.
Right.
So, what I really like about the Biden Harris plan is the Build Back Better plan, and that promises to mobilize American manufacturing and innovation, and to create millions of good paying union jobs. That's
Mhm.
essential because in our inner cities, when we talk about crime and violence, we're talking about economics. Unless our young people have a strong economic base, they're going to be sucked into the another world of drugs and crime. But if you have good paying jobs that are living wage jobs, that's an alternative. Building a modern infrastructure and a clean energy future. I would liken this to the days of the Great Depression. And in the Black community, we are in a Great Depression. And FDR had a plan that mobilized American workers and rebuilt the infrastructure of the country. In the city of Philadelphia, which we were discussing, because we're here in Philadelphia, we have 40,000 vacant houses. That in itself could be a huge project or program to not only employ our young people, employ returning citizens, train people in the construction and rehabbing houses, but providing housing for the poor, for the displaced, for the homeless. So you're doing two things at one time. You're renovating the city structure, and you're creating a economic base. And when you give families an opportunity to buy homes, home ownership is the key to generational wealth, because you pass down those homes to the next generation and you build wealth as you move forward. That's how we have to be thinking. And if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are serious about this plan, we have to get behind it, make sure it happens, and hold them accountable for any missteps or any mistakes that would delay this plan. It's one thing to make a campaign promise. It's entirely another thing to carry it through to a successful conclusion.
Okay, well,
Yeah, so I just wanted to piggyback off of that. And as me and you had discussions earlier today, pertaining to the PAC and pertaining to any potential candidate uh, that is coming up for state or local elections, we as the people need to hold these people accountable. Like, not once they get in, we get lackadaisical and complacent to what they done in that first term, but we need to hold them to the carpet and to the fire for their out. So their promises and their agendas that they set forth, we as the people really need to stay on top of it and revigorate it to make sure that they usher in and keep true to game. Because if not, we're going to fall for the same okey doke year after year and go through this conundrum of problems which aren't getting fixed, but they're being pacified until the next candidate come along and promises something with an empty plate.
and I agree with you. And I too. I am impressed with the Biden plan for Black America. Not only because as you mentioned, I don't. This is the first time that I saw an actual candidate of a major party, one of the two major parties, to come out with a plan. It's interesting because Donald Trump didn't even have a plan. Then when Ice Cube went to him, I think he kind of stole some pieces of Ice Cube plan, which I believe he stole from the Biden plan and put it and used it and called it something the Platinum Plan. But one of the things, couple measures that he put into his plan are easily attainable, is what I like. So these are not um, pie in the sky type promises. This is not
Something that's
I'm going
far
to give you
fetched.
I'm going to give you $500 billion if you vote for me. No, I mean, these are very, very simple points. Advance economic mobility of African Americans and close the racial wealth and income gaps. Expand access to high quality education and tackle racial inequality in our education system. There we go again. We start educating folks. We can kind of put a stop or shut down or slow down that school to prisons process. Make far-reaching investments in ending health disparities by race. Well, we already saw that with the just with the COVID-19. We saw that particularly Black and brown folks were being affected and dying of
Yes,
COVID-19 at a extremely high
great.
level. Strengthen America's commitment to justice. Well, this is what we're talking about today. How can we help people get more, get help our people get justice, and how can we do it on the front end, by electing DAs and judges as well. I don't want to leave that out. How that's important because they get 10-year in 10-year bids. So we want to make sure that we put the right judge in there. So when our young folks or even older folks, when they go in front of a judge, you're going in front of someone who understands this. Making the right to vote, the right to equal protection real for African Americans. We can see that right now, what's happening with the current occupant of the White House and the outgoing President Trump. He's putting his last ditch efforts to stay in power by essentially attacking the black vote, attacking Milwaukee, attacking Philadelphia, attacking Detroit, attacking Atlanta. You know what I mean? So essentially, if you throw out all the black vote, he wins. It doesn't work like that because black Americans are American citizens. And as you mentioned, brother Harrell, addressing environmental justice. Whether you call it the Green New Deal or whatever. But right now, again, it's interesting because I mentioned this on a podcast, early in the year, how I didn't really take the environmental piece as serious as, perhaps maybe my son and his friends, have taken it. But, after watching, the mismanagement of the right wingers of the COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic, and how their lack of trust or lack of respect for science, made me take another look at the environment, and now understanding that yes, climate change is not actually a hoax. It is real, and we're going to be in some serious trouble if we don't begin electing politicians who share the same sense that we have to take this serious. So your thoughts on that, just kind of labeling through some of the plans. I know you want to dig a little bit deeper into that, into Biden's plan, Brother Harrell.
Yes, I really like the aspect where he talks about building a 21st century caregiving and education workforce, making it easier to afford childcare. Um, my daughters and my granddaughters are childcare is essential. They're trying to build and craft lives, and childcare without quality childcare, they can't move forward. And my parents, my father is 94 and my mother is 87.
God
And
bless them.
they're at the point in their life where they're seriously aging. They have home health care in addition to family support to give them the quality of life that they deserve. And the reality for most Black people is the last place we want to see our parents and our relatives is in a nursing home.
That's right.
That's
Right.
the last
Mhm.
resort. If their condition is so dire that they need medical attention beyond what we as a family can give, we want them to be in their homes or in our homes until they pass on to the next life. And we need the quality of care that will make that happen. They talk about racial equity, and that's often talked about, but how do you really close the racial wealth gap?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways you do it is through education. HBCUs need to be fully funded by the government, but also, I've been saying for a long time, if you graduated from an HBCU, it's your responsibility to support the institution that gave you access to a better life.
That's right.
And that's a responsibility for Black Americans, but also the government has to step in to make sure that education is a priority, to raise the standard of education in our high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools in urban areas so that we have the same quality of education as there is in the suburbs. I have grandchildren in the city of Philadelphia going to school, and I have them in the surrounding counties. And trust me, the education in the suburbs is 4 to 5 times better than it is in the city of Philadelphia.
That's right. That's right.
And that sort of disparity should not stand. It should not be.
You know, and you know, it's another great point, you know, about the disparity, and we're talking kind of like, you know, education and wealth. And you know, I saw on the screen, you know, the Biden plan to, you know, eliminate about $10,000 in student loan debt. You know, it's not, you know, as lucrative and as aggressive as Bernie Sanders, but it's definitely a start in the right direction. You know, I know my son, you know, one of the things that he was saying, you know, when folks are talking about going back into the new normal, or, you know, going back to normal, but well, for him, normal is, you know, carrying, you know, thousands of dollars in student loan debt.
Yes.
You know, it's almost, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's extremely challenging to build wealth when you settle with that type of debt coming out of college, when really only thing that you did is what, you know, the school systems and your parents, you know, encourage you to do, is to go to college and become educated. You know, the other piece too, the other piece that we, you know, we learned too through, you know, this process, and what we're seeing right now with the Constitution being under attack by Donald Trump, and the fact that, you know, 73 million people actually voted for him. And I'm not, you know, going to take this opportunity to bash those 73 folks. I will say though, that just shows you that there is an issue right now in our educational system. And I think this is one of the reasons why we need to, you know, really start to put more dollars into that. You know, it's clearly folks do not, including the president himself, you know, do not have a clear understanding of the Constitution. In fact, there was a Tommy Tuberville, I believe his name was. He's a former football coach for Auburn. He was elected to the Alabama. He was elected as Alabama's representation in the United States Senate. This guy has been elected to a 6-year term, and once he was elected, he didn't have a firm understanding of what the 3 branches of government was. Now, I will chalk that off. I mean, I can understand, you know, they say, hey, this guy's a Tea Party guy or a Trump supporter or whatever. But this guy was not only is he he's going to get a 6-year term in the United States Senate, but this guy was also a collegiate football coach. He was a leader in a university for higher, you know, an institution for higher learning. And the fact that I mean, I'm not saying that he had to be a professor or some type of scholar, or not even a Rhodes Scholar, but the fact that this guy didn't even know who what the executive branch was, what the legislative branch, and what the judicial branch was. He said he said the 3 branches of government was the president, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. I mean, that should have disqualified him. I know he was elected, and he darn near received 2-1 votes in Alabama. And I just said, you know, that's just a sad state of where party politics, you know, has really kind of, you know, overwhelmed, you know, our political structure and our political system, where it's gone from, you know, getting into public office to fulfill a civic duty, to now getting into public office to perform crony party politics. And I think the best way that we can, you know, get around this is to continue an aggressive voter registration drive, you know, from here until 2032, when people of color will demographically be the majority in this country.
Yes. I think that the fact that a senator to be doesn't have a basic knowledge of how the government actually works is symptomatic of the lack of knowledge that is prevalent among the general American population. And even the president, President Trump, never had a clear understanding of how the Constitution limited his powers, which is why he overstepped the boundaries of his powers even to this day. How can a president not understand the transition of one administration to the next, and that you have to allow for the funding and a knowledge of the worldwide political stage and the security of this country? All that is involved in the transition, and all the different agencies have to cooperate to make sure that that transition is smooth. And if that doesn't happen, you actually endanger the security of this nation. So President Trump has gone beyond being obtuse, egotistical, and eccentric into being a clear and present danger to this nation. And if no one else says it, we should say it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And you know, it's interesting. And not only do we have to say it, he's clearly saying it. If you look at, we've been following along with the bogus lawsuits that they are rendering, saying that alleging voter fraud, which 50 Secretary of States say there was no voter fraud. It's interesting because he pointed out Philadelphia, and I find this really interesting that there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, and actually Donald Trump underperformed in 66 out of 67 counties. And there's a trivia question for everybody who's listening. Do you know the one county that Donald Trump actually overperformed his 2016 numbers? I'll give you the answer here, and that answer is the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Donald Trump Philadelphia was the only county that Donald Trump actually overperformed his numbers in 2016. Yet Philadelphia is the problem for him. But I got news for you. I live in York. I reside in York County. He underperformed in York County, so he may want to check check the records in the books of what happened in York County. He actually lost Erie County. Erie County flipped from red to blue. He may want to check what went down in Erie County. But the county that was most favorable for him and the county that he did the best in was Philadelphia. But Walt sent me an article yesterday when Giuliani, who's when his makeup is not running or the hair dye is not running on camera from his wedding, he is saying one thing in the courts. He goes into the courts and he told the judge, he said, "Hey, there is no fraud." But when moments after he steps out of the court and now takes his trial to the public and then right to the public for public opinion, he then says, "Oh, there was plenty of fraud. I have all the evidence." But yet has shown any. I got affidavits, but haven't shown anything. And what this is doing is this is an appeal not to a jury under oath. This is an appeal to the 72 million folks who, quite frankly, they have zero respect for. Yeah, and I'm just going to say it. I'm not. I mean, Trump supporters. This is your man. The way he's treating you. This is the man who's disrespecting your intelligence or insulting your intelligence, saying that they're going to tell you one thing on camera, but say another thing under oath. It's just that's why education, is the key, and we really need to continue to stay down this path, because without it, we're going to, like you said, we're going to run into someone in 4 years that is far more dangerous than Donald Trump is right now.
Yes, most definitely. And we still haven't talked about what happens if Donald Trump continues to refuse to concede the election and does not release funds and acts as if he is going to remain in power.
Right.
That's a constitutional crisis.
That's
that
right.
is looming.
That's
That's
what I've
right.
always been calling. I've been
That's
saying
right.
that for the last 2 years. This guy's going to take us to the point of no return, and now we're here.
Yes.
Event Horizon.
And the good news is on January 20th at noon, um, or 12:01 p.m. If he's still in the White House, he will be considered a trespasser, and he will be treated as such by the 80 million people who voted against him, and probably some of the 72 million who are patriots, and believe in democracy and believe in the rule of law and in the U.S. Constitution. Will see to it that he has he will I don't know if where he's going to transition. This will be a transition of power, but he's going to transition out of that White House.
Well,
Well,
you also have to look at the fact that um, there were numerous generals who were discussing this publicly, saying that if they were given the order to sustain him in power, they would follow the Constitution. He has fired those generals and
that's
replaced
right.
them with Trump loyalists.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
so
So,
what will that
well,
look like in the event that he decides he's not going to
yeah.
release
Well,
power?
well, this is what I would do. The White House still sits in the District of Columbia. What I would be as a citizen, I would go to the mayor of DC, and if he doesn't leave the office, I say order the utility companies, the electric company, the water company of DC, whatever those companies are,
Shut it
Right.
down.
the light company, shut it off at
Shut them down.
12:01, and hey, you can stay there as long as you can, and I believe also, I think they've already made plans for this. I think Wilmington, if something happens, this is just Rob Cooper's opinion. I think that Wilmington will become a temporary capital. It's been done before. Hell, where I live at right now, York, Pennsylvania was a capital. Philadelphia was a capital. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the District of Columbia. You can temporary. Now we're in a virtual world. I think there's measures in place to help, us to uphold the rule of law and uphold democracy, which we all hold dear to. Well, this has been another great all in politics podcast. Brother Harrell, once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
our president. And you're
Thank you
always
for
welcome
inviting
to
me.
come on back. Yes, and you're always welcome, just like our big brother Malik. Anytime he said he wanted to come on, he got the power hour. So we will turn that over to you, and we'll make sure that at any time you want to come on, and you have some information that you want to give out to the general public, we will reserve that as the power hour for you as well. Brother Walt.
Yeah, right now I just want to leave Mr. Harrell with the floor so he can give any platforms they may be able to find him on, any type of organization, things that may be going on, planning, events, contact information. I'll leave the floor to you.
So, folks can follow my commentary on Instagram, TCRC Philly, on Facebook, Ross J. Jean Harrell. And here in Philadelphia, we do so much out of the Healing Center, which is at 3609 North Broad Street. Our telephone number is 267 324 5217. And we are a force in our community. Um, Due to COVID-19 and food scarcity, we're also a food pantry, and we run the best food pantry in the city of Philadelphia every Friday from 9 to 2. So we are a full service organization dedicated to our community. Uh, Seek us out, support our work. We are here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Very much appreciated. So, with that being said, this has been another exciting episode of the Real to Real to Jump Off, the All In Politics platform on the All In Network. Please subscribe, and we'd love to hear from you. And as my co-host Rob always say, we give the voice to the voiceless. So with that being said, and much ado, we bid you guys peace, love, and prosperity in your travels. Stay safe. Peace.
And thank you to our producer, Elijah Cooper. Peace.